Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Gangs of London. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So first and foremost, we have the Wallaces scattered. Obviously, Billy's off on his own. We see Marion and Sean meeting up. And obviously, they're in hiding. And Marion's the one kind of saying, like, basically, they need to kind of get to Ireland and then they can kind of gather their forces, come back and strike. But for Sean, it's like, what's the point of striking at an enemy we can't see? We don't know any names. Yeah, there's these enemies around us, but they're not the ones that have been coming after us, gunning for us like they have been. It's like, going after anyone else right now, it's pointless because what we really should be heading, cutting off the head of the snake who's really behind us. But how are we going to do that, you know? And so Sean goes off, and, like, obviously he's wondering if there's someone else in the building, but it ends up being birds. But obviously he sees, like, the writing on the wall that says, like, fuck the Nazi cunt Wallaces. And so it's just kind of like a reminder. Like, for him, it's just like, because he's got playing over and over and over in his head. I don't know whether that was a dream sequence or whether he actually went there to pick up the bucket where that bullet was. The dude that, well, potentially his mom had an affair with, who Billy shot instead of him. But it's like him rolling it over and over in his head where it's like, the Wallaces have so much on their back. Because the thing, and the frustrating thing for Sean is, for one, he looked up to his dad. He kind of, obviously it's like his dad was a D-bag, but he kind of believed, like, no, my dad teaching me for a reason. He wants me to be strong. We're Wallaces. That name means something. And just to know that, like, his dad was going to up and abandon not just him, the family, like, the name as a Wallace. It's like, he did the most non-Wallace thing you could possibly do. And for Sean, that's the most frustrating thing. As Elliot says, like, his dad was his hero, and his whole world got flipped upside down, finding out the truth about what his dad had planned, and his dad was going to walk away from all this. But it's especially messed up for, Sean, because he's done so much just in the span of the show. Not just talking about, like, what the Wallace family did as a whole. That's one separate thing. But everything he's done to, like, that, setting that guy on fire at the beginning, to wiping out that whole group. Was that episode 2 or whatever? It's like doing all that, and was like, for what? At the end of the day, like, I did it in the name of a man who, like, was going to abandon us all. Who, like, it kind of was all for nothing, because he was trying to keep. It's like, for one, he was trying to get revenge for his dad, but it's like, my dad was about to leave me and my siblings and my mom behind like it was nothing. He was going to leave us all behind to basically carry the bag, because he was also screwing us over, because apparently he's taken like $1.5 billion from us. He stole that from us, so it's like. It's just everything. His entire foundation came crumbling down in that, So he was frustrated, What has he been fighting for? What has he been aiming for this entire time? He's been aiming to be just like his dad, and now it's just like, because he looked up to his dad, and it's like, now he sees and knows his dad for who he really is. Obviously, you have Elliot going off on his own to visit Shannon, even though he was told not to stay away from Shannon. But sneaking in there, he runs into Ed, which Ed's like, I'm very good at sussing people out. It's how I've saved a life so long. But you make sure to try and make sure everyone likes you. It's like, I don't know what your deal is. The fact of the matter is, you always try to stay on every side, and you try to make sure that you, at the end of the day, you've never picked a side. He's like, I'm going to pick a side for you, and it's not going to be the one I'm on. Leave the key and bounce. Which is like, obviously for Elliot, it's like he legitimately is, like, because obviously this is super out of his job purview of, like, what he's supposed to be up to. Getting involved with Shannon and Danny was never supposed to be part of the deal. He got a little too close and everything. So, but he is legitimately just looking after him, because they will be dragged into this. Yeah, she's aware of what her dad is and done, and obviously what the Wallaces are up to. But she had there was some separation that she was never, because she's kind of collateral damage mixed up in this war that is eventually going to be. Ed's family versus Marion's family, the Wallaces versus the Dumanis. It's like, it's kind of turning into that, because it's like, right, because I think in a sense it's like, well, you're not on my side, I'm gonna force you to choose the Wallace's side. So obviously Shannon's overhearing and comes downstairs, and her dad's just like, go back upstairs and look after Danny. He goes to see Javon. Javon is like dealing with the backlash of, like, right. So not only is his money missing, I'm trying to tell our investors to keep your son. Not only that he does good work for us, but keeping him alive. You are also another angle to that too, of keeping you alive, as well as your daughter and your grandchild. you know? But then, like, Ed's like, what about you? And it's like, Javon doesn't say anything, but it's like, yeah, his head's on a chopping block, too, because this isn't just stop with them. The reason why he's so pissed is because you guys screwed up, it's making me look bad, and now my head's on the chopping block, too. But, essentially, I love what Ed was saying. Like, yeah, Marion's the planning type. Sean, when he feels like there's nothing else to lose, he's going to turn super desperate. I wouldn't be standing out here outside wide open like this if I were you, so. But obviously for them, it's like, right, Alex will take over things the moment we remove Sean from the picture. And even later on talking to Alex saying, like, the only way this is going to end is if Sean dies. Because they can't, like, after everything that's going down, and especially cutting them out of all of this, it's like, we weren't responsible for what the investor ordered and what was done, but we're profiting from it. Sean's not going to appreciate that. So it's a thing of Ed's trying to look out for them. But then it's interesting because Alex is like, right, there's the whole situation with what's her face? Floriana. It's like, right. But then, like, he was like, oh yeah, Javon said that she's dead. And it's like, well, if that were the case, you know, whoever it was would be smart enough to keep her alive, like fake like she was dead, just so they could get the money. Because like Alex was able to recover $250 million, because it was like in a Cayman's Island account, but there's still like the bill left to kind of figure out where the hell that is. And so obviously, like, Floriana, you'd need her name and all that stuff. I figured, like I said, I figured as much. Like, this had to have something to do with, like, it seems like it's specifically about Floriana and not the baby, but I think it's because Floriana was like, I will give you access, I will do whatever you need me to get you the money, just make sure my baby's born and taken care of. That's like, otherwise, there's no negotiating in this part. Because I was thinking, like, maybe they needed the baby because the baby is a Wallace by nature. Like, I thought, like, it was kind of like a bastard child type of thing of, like, right, you're still his blood by nature. That child is still his blood by nature. So I thought that's where things were going to go, but it's like, and even later on when Floriana is giving birth, and it's like, oh, and it wait, like, I was like, is Floriana going to do something? I wasn't sure, but she was kind of going along with it, being like, do you want to watch the baby with me? I was like, okay, you're going to use that as your opportunity, and then going up the stairs, and, like, Leaf's mom, it's like, don't worry, like, I'm going to raise this child like it's my own, because it's like, I think the whole plan was, the baby's born, everything's fine, you'll get the money, you'll get maybe your portion of the money, you can disappear. Maybe they were thinking she didn't care about the baby, and they never really went into too much about what the exact circumstances around that were. I mean, because I interpreted that as like oh, you're gonna die thing, but you're gonna die, but your baby's gonna be okay, and don't worry about it. But Florian took the opportunity, pushed Leaf's mom down the stairs, and bounced. Which Leaf was kind of busy this episode. First and foremost, showing up at the Wallace house. They had already bailed, but obviously some of Marion's people were staying behind. Poor bastards got it hard, especially like the second dude who was struggling with the gun. Luckily, first dude was already dead, so when they shotgunned him in the head, it was okay. But man, once again, it's like, yeah, this show can get gnarly out of nowhere like that. It's crazy. It kind of reminds me of Banshee in that way. I think Banshee would be a good comparison for the show, because Banshee could get raw and bloody and nasty like this, like out of nowhere. Like, it could just be like a regular show. You could, like, that's like the only instance of things getting bloody this entire episode like that. It's just one scene. It's like Banshee could be like that too. Once again, if you like this show, I think you'll really like Banshee. They're very similar, like, violence and tone and gore wise. I know, like, because that might be a turnoff for some people, like the blood and gore. But I still think, in all honesty, it's a really, really good show. Once again, I think you can find it on Prime. But that's enough about Banshee, even though you can never say enough about Banshee. But nevertheless, obviously they were also going after Jacqueline, because it's like, right, going to use her as bait. That's where Billy went off to, because I think at that moment Billy heard everything, and it's just kind of like, all right, there's no point in me sticking around this family, because I guess he already had an exit plan, and he just needed that to be the final confirmation of like, right, I'm not going to stick around in this family for what? This family's just broken and messed up. Now finding out about Dad too is like, nah, that's enough. I'm done. So, or maybe it just in general was simply like knowing that Jacqueline would be caught in the crosshairs, because luckily she's always been able to have a distance from the Wallaces, you know. But when he rolls up and it's like, you gotta get out, she's like, I'm not even a Wallace. At the end of the day, she is. Whether you want to believe it or not, you are a Wallace. The blood still flows through your veins, and it's like, right, they could still try to come after you, which Billy was right, so it's lucky they left. But it turns out Billy had actually set up an escape plan like 5 years ago. He's like, yeah, I'm like, you know, getting high all the time. Smack and stuff, you kind of plan for stuff like this. So he already got like a new identity, a house, a car, and it's like nothing ever came about it, but he also has one set up for Jacqueline as well. And she's like, really? And it's like, yeah. She's like, well, what's my first name? And well, for one, it's like, wait, is that your last name, my last name? It's like, yeah, you are my sister after all. So that was actually really sweet. Because I guess, like, to a certain extent, like, they're the ones who kind of... Billy borderlined it a lot about pushing away the family and being part of the family, because it is his family regardless of anything. Jacqueline always just kind of denounced the family. But I think now Billy's just kind of like, yeah, he was already teetering and he just needed an excuse just to bounce. And it's like his sister's safety, their safety, because it's like, right, we're just going to get away from this. No longer going to be Wallaces and everything. So they're still going to be siblings, though. So hopefully their disappearing works out for them. Obviously, it's like, well, would their mom come after them or not? She might still try to track them down, because it's like, regardless of anything, you're still my kids. I need to know you're okay. But like, they don't even want their mom to know where they are. So, but circling back to Elliot, we have him trying to meet up with Eve, but Eve's not. I said Eve. I meant Vic. Trying to meet up with her, but she's not there. But their boss rolls up and he's like, oh yeah, Vic's in trouble because you getting too close to the family and stuff like that. Well, it turns out that you trying to set Anthony up blew up in his face, because they ended up finding out who he was. I was like, how did they do that? Was he just terrible at what he did, and just was he acting super shady? It's like Elliot managed not to get figured out, but I guess it's like, right, he's put himself in a favorable position. Anthony hadn't quite put himself. I mean, especially because these were people he didn't know. These were Marion's people, like, her pack. So it's kind of like they don't have the same like loyalty that Elliot has from, like, at least from Sean and Marion. Marion seems like she's skeptical, but Sean, like, he's got Sean's 100% support, so it's kind of like he has Marion's as well. So now it's kind of a thing of like, right, you're going to go in there and you're going to save him, but he's like, yeah, when it's all said and done, like, the family's broken apart, I'm going to use that, I'm going to be the one there to kind of reveal it. He's like, no. If you're lucky, you'll be able to kind of forgive yourself after this. Just save Anthony, because he's a good man that you put him in this position. And it's like, weren't you guys, let's be fair, weren't you guys literally going to do the same thing? But maybe it's like, no, I was going to have him pulled out, but it probably wouldn't have been a douchey way like that. It probably would have been him probably just meeting with Elliot, and it's like, yeah, you're out. It probably wouldn't have been a whole horse and pony show like Elliot created, and because of that, he created the circumstances in which Anthony was kidnapped. So obviously, Marion's moving out at this point in the story, and then they go into the helicopter to go to Ireland. Sean's got some stuff to take care of, and Elliot's like, let me do this. Like, the fact of the matter is, you don't want a dead cop to be the reason why this whole family thing kind of falls apart, so let me go talk to him. Don't want the cops to become an issue after this is all said and done. So he goes there, and they're drilling into Anthony, trying to pump him for questions. Sadly, Elliot isn't able to get to... Well, he's there in time, but the guy, like, drills the back of his neck, and you're like, oh, God, I don't think there's any coming back from that. Elliot kills the dude, tries to hold Anthony. He's like, I did tell them, and he's like, I appreciate it, but come on, just hold on. Another guy shows up, Elliot puts him down, but sadly, Anthony dies in the end. And obviously, it's for him, it's like, he blames himself because it's like, right, I got too close. Like, I'm too invested in this. Once again, we don't know why, but I'm assuming it's got to be something connected to his wife and his son. Like, they're dead because of the Wallaces. Maybe it's just kind of like one of the gangs that they're associated with. So it's like, you guys are at the center of it. If I take you down, I take down a very powerful force in the gang world. Like, the fact that he's getting close to the Wallaces makes me think it had to be like maybe Sean or something. Because it's like, I feel like you would have taken your time to kill Sean. So it's like, I think it's just everything. Like, I think it might just be like, oh, like, it might have been some random gang, or maybe like a bout between two particular gangs that led to his wife and son dying. So he wants to, like, burn the whole empire down. So maybe that's what it is. Because I was like, why stay here if it was just Sean or something like that, the Wallaces? Wouldn't it have been easier just to let Sean catch a bullet, and that with those snipers and stuff like that? So it's definitely more than, especially because he's working so hard to figure out who's at the top. Like, he is trying to cut off the head of the snake, but figure out who's the one responsible for all of this. But obviously he leaves the gun in Anthony's hand and making it seem like, oh yeah, he's the one who pulled the trigger. Vic shows up in time, but he's already, Elliot's already gone. And so Elliot goes back home. He's tearing down all the stuff off the wall. I'm like, why is he doing it? Like, is he expecting someone to show up like Sean or something? But it turns out it's Shannon. And so for him, it's like, she's like, run away with me. And he's like, no, I can't. Like, it's like, he uses the excuse saying, like, simply put, like, he can't because there is truth in what he's saying. Because it's like, right, it's not just about Sean. Like, running away with Sean, like, I'm going to have a target on my back as much if I, like, run away with you guys now. But the fact is, you're going to be caught in the crosshairs of something worse. Because there's someone at the top of all of this. And if I don't figure that out, you know, you're never going to be safe. You know, and then she's like, is it about them? Because she looks at a picture of his wife and child, and he's like, they were my world, and so you are too now. And so I'm not going to make the mistake of what, like, letting what happened to them happen to you. So I need you to go. He's like, I should have never let things kind of go this far. But then Shannon's kind of like, you didn't have much of a choice, you know. Some other interesting elements is that we see the conversation between Nasir and his father, Asif. And it's, you know, obviously it's like, oh yeah, you come back to basically my money, like to get your like election and stuff like that. But Nasir kind of sees through it. It's like, the reason why you're so invested in me winning is because who did you sell me off to? And he's like, Asif is like, nah, just having my son be the mayor, and then eventually gets into like, oh, like around the legislation and stuff you can cut around. You know, that's what's so important. So it's like, yes. So then I was immediately like, so are you involved with the same investors? I mean, they're putting Alex in position of the Wallace business to kind of deal with the money side of things. Nasir being mayor and everything, he can change a lot of legislation and laws to kind of make things kind of flow to where they need to be, or what this sole investor or investors want. I think it's one investor. I don't think it's like a whole cabal of investors. Like, there are multiple investors invested in all of this, but I think it's just one investor in particular who's kind of been like, who set a lot of this in motion. But Asif is coming from the perspective of like having grown up like with nothing, being hungry, and it's like once you've been that, you're never letting your power and money go again. So now that he's in a more powerful position, because we even see it later on in the episode, him and Nasir are with Yevon, so it's like, right, so they're just as neck deep in this, which kind of benefits Sean, because I don't know, maybe it came up and I just missed it, but I didn't remember Sean and them necessarily tying Asif to all this, but maybe they figured he had to be, considering everything. So he's working with Lale, and it's like, oh, we'll, you know, thanks for getting this list of stuff. Here's this list of stuff, and once my men get it ready for me, like, we're going to go after Asif. So let's circle away from that for a little bit, because I was about to forget some other important stuff. Your boy Luan. First and foremost, I was scared to death for Luan. Like, the moment, it's like, because the moment that dude was kind of acting weird, I was like, is he selling you guys out? I just had a feeling. Especially, like, it just like, he's like, yeah, oh, it's this, I think he said it was 47 or something. I was like, is that actually going to be the room across the hall and I don't know. He was just sitting down eating with them, so it's like, I was like, yeah, he could have just been a plant, but I'm like, I mean, maybe that's supposed to be the point, too. The fact is he was on the inside. Either that's where he was supposed to be, or it's like, oh, right, this is the time, they're going to be arriving soon, let me get in position. So, especially when he was telling Luan, it's like, oh, yeah, like, home dude's waiting around the corner for you, and he started walking the other way. It's like, he tricked you. And obviously Luan finds his dude, like, hacked to pieces. Mosey's got him. The other poor bastard's like, no, you told me I could walk. And it's like, Mosey probably was like, nah, the fact of the matter is, you agreed to betray me anyway, even though, like, you came out and was like, oh, I'm going to, like, help you. Like, whether Mosey found out and he was like, okay, I'll help you lure Luan in, or whether he came out first and foremost was like, okay, Luan's trying to set you up, that's why I'm here. Either way, it's a thing of like, right, your loyalties are questionable at best. It's like, you might have screwed Luan over now to help me, but who's to say you won't do the same to me in the future? So, I mean, Mosey's Mossy. He kind of seems like a crazy dude. You, once again, like, as Ed said, don't get in business. You don't want to make any promises to that dude. So he gets hacked to pieces. And obviously, Mosey's like, texting his wife to, you know, it's like, oh, like, traffic's a little behind and she's on her way here. And he's like, well, too bad the kids aren't with her. And Luan got pissed, kicked Mosey, grabbed home dude who's got the knife around his neck, kind of loosened the grip, threw him over his shoulder, got a knife, went to slicing and dicing, and went to town on Mosi. Like, stabbed him twice against the door. Thumbs in the eye. Was like, yo! I wasn't expecting that your boy Luan to have moves like that. I didn't see him getting out of that. I was hopeful that he would, and luckily he does. And it's just like, wow. All by himself, too. That was pretty damn impressive. Obviously, his wife is happy to see that he's okay. Obviously, they're going home. She's packing. He's like, no. We're not running. I'm not going to have everyone say that Luan ran. And for her, it's like, no, you're going to temporarily leave and let all of your enemies kill themselves so that when you return with stronger forces, you have fewer enemies to deal with. So, and Luan knows he's not in a powerful enough position to deal with everyone and everything going on. So, I think he takes his wife's advice. So, that's Luan's side of things. But obviously, you also have at the very end the scene between Sean and Alex. It was about like, oh man, you recovered the money, that's good. But like Sean having a new perspective on things. He goes, basically he understands where his father was coming from, why my dad ran away. It's like, he kind of got tired of it all, like an old horse, you know? So, it was a situation where it's like, I think he was obviously still pissed at his dad, but he kind of understood, you know? And obviously the whole conversation is like, right, the money situation was found out after they'd already killed my dad. So it's like, yeah, they didn't know what he had planned, but they kind of screwed themselves over to a certain extent. But obviously for Sean, you know, he tells Alex to look out the window, and it's like, okay, here's the building we built, you know. Because, like, Alex is still trying to be like, we can do this together, but for Sean, it's like, nah, those bridges are burned. You know, the fact of the matter is we're on two separate sides now. And obviously we find out what he was dealing with Lale. And Lale, like, drops out the van. I'm like, oh, are we? And, yep. They blow up that building. That building that was kind of the centerfold, the representation of everything. Because for Sean, it's like, I can't go after a target. I don't know who they are. So doing this, he's planning on drawing them out. Obviously, he's shedding a tear because of what that means. It's kind of like destroying the legacy that his father built. You know, it's like the last monument that stood for his father. So it's kind of saying goodbye to that. It's like saying goodbye to his dad as a whole to a certain extent. So, but obviously everyone feels the earthquake and everyone's looking. Like obviously Elliot and Shannon, Alex. And I like the cut back and forth between Alex viewing it and Sean viewing it. Ed, Jevin, Asif, and Nasir. So now heads are potentially going to roll because the investor's going to be super big because a lot of time and money. That was the centerfold of what a lot of the money was kind of getting funneled through. I believe that tower and what it represented and everything. So a lot of money just went down the drain, and you know, especially future investments of what like money would have gone through that. So it's like that once again, that was kind of the centerfold of, and you know, both metaphorical and literal representation of the seat of power with this whole thing. So, as Ed said, when Sean feels like there's no other moves, that's when he's most dangerous. So he literally shot the warning shot into the air of like, here I am, come and get me. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see where things go. Next episode is the season finale, so it's going to be interesting to see how this season ultimately ends up wrapping up. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.